The federal government threatened legal action after car maker Stellantis said it will move planned vehicle production from its plant in Brampton to Illinois, sparking fears about the future of Canada's auto industry.
Yeah, we know Donald Trump definitely has our auto industry in his sights.
The tariff and trade war with the U.S. is taking a tough turn for Canada's auto sector.
Good evening. It's devastating news for thousands of auto workers. Word that production of a vehicle set to be made in Brampton will be moved to Illinois.
Stellantis had temporarily paused work in the midst of the tariff war between Canada and the U.S., and now the company says the Jeep Compass will be built south of the border.
This is news that is hitting Canadian auto workers very hard. We know Stellantis did have those plans to create the Jeep Compass out of that assembly plant in Brampton, Ontario, and now news that that is leaving Ontario and going instead south of the border, and that's going to lead to a direct impact to 3,000 Canadian jobs. Now, Stellantis did release a statement after announcing this, talking about the impact on the growth of the company. In part, it said this investment to the U.S., the single largest in the company's history, will drive our growth, strengthen our manufacturing footprint, and bring more American jobs to the states we call home. Prime Minister Mark Carney has also reacted to this news, saying the change in production to Illinois are a direct consequence of the trade war and these tariffs on the Canadian auto sector. The union, specifically Unifor, and its president, Lana Payne, strong language after hearing this news, saying that the Canadian auto workers are being sacrificed on the Trump altar.
Leaders from every level of Canadian government are lashing out at Stellantis today. The automaker says it's reneging on plans to make Jeeps in Brampton, Ontario, and moving production to the U.S. instead. The blame is falling squarely on U.S. President Donald Trump and his tariffs.
We need to start hitting back and hitting back hard. That's the only thing this person understands. Sorry, I just get pumped up talking about this guy. He drives me absolutely crazy. He does. And we aren't going to roll over. I'm not going to let him roll over Ontario, I'll tell you that.
Stellantis didn't just move a model. It tried to export Canada's backbone to appease a tariff bully. Jeep Compass jumps to Illinois, 3,000 Brampton families get a robocall, and the company shrugs, blame the tariffs. Brampton's retool has been frozen since February as the trade war escalated, and now Ottawa's pushing back, threatening to withhold up to $5 billion tied to the Windsor battery plant and putting default language on the table. There's a clause that flips the leverage, and Canada's finally using it. Here's what Stellantis promised, and why that matters now. The betrayal and the blame game. Stellantis cites U.S. tariffs, announces a record American investment, and frames it like growth and patriotism, more American jobs, stronger footprint, all the slogans rolled into one press release. On the surface, it sounds rational. Tariffs go up, production moves inside the tariff wall. But wait, what's actually happening is political arbitrage. This isn't the invisible hand of the market. It's a company gaming a policy storm by exporting Canadian jobs for tariff shelter, then calling it efficiency. Look at the facts on the ground. Brampton's plant has been idled, retooling paused as the White House escalated its trade war. 3,000 Unifor members left in limbo, learning their fate by robocall. That's not strategic transformation. That's corporate contempt. And workers aren't wrong to call it a betrayal. Unifor's Lana Payne put it bluntly. Canadian auto workers are being sacrificed on the Trump altar. You don't have to love union rhetoric to see the truth there. Policy fire in Washington is burning down paychecks in Peel. Now here's where the political gears grind. Premier Doug Ford, usually the open for business guy, says no provincial funding until Stellantis provides clear assurances, timeline, model, real production. He even called Trump a tyrant and openly flirted with counter-tariffs. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Mark Carney ties the move directly to the tariff war. This isn't some neutral capital allocation. It's the fallout of U.S. political choices. Zoom out and you see the split screen. In Belvidere, Illinois, the mayor celebrates jobs returning. It's a ribbon-cutting moment. In Brampton, restaurants across the street from the plant report slower months. Suppliers are staring at purchase orders that may never arrive, and parts manufacturers who invested for the Compass line are suddenly exposed. That's the knock-on effect. When assembly moves, the entire ecosystem, logistics, service, retail, gets punched. We've seen this pattern before. Companies chase subsidies and tariff shields, then declare market reality once the damage is done. But wait, Ottawa didn't rage tweet. They pulled the contract. They're not arguing vibes, they're citing obligations. And that's where this story pivots. Canada's legal gambit and the 5B leverage CTV obtained Mélanie Joly's letter to Stellantis, and it reads like a line in the sand. Stellantis agreed with Canada and Ontario to maintain its full Canadian footprint, including Brampton, in exchange for substantial financial support. Anything short of that commitment, she says, will be considered a default. That single word, default, isn't a talking point. It's a switch that changes leverage. Here's the insight most takes miss. This deal isn't a handshake. It's performance-based. The money is tied to output, footprint, and job commitments. If you don't meet the terms, the tap shuts off. That's where the Windsor battery project comes in. Ontario pledged more than $500 million to modernize Brampton and Windsor. Ottawa and Queen's Park together are backing the $5 billion Nexstar battery plant in Windsor. The Premier's office says the battery deal is separate. Politically, that's tidy. Practically, it's leverage sitting on the table. Mechanically, these agreements usually include milestones, reporting, and remedies. If the company deviates on footprint, the government can withhold upcoming payments, claw back disbursed amounts, or trigger dispute resolution. Joly's default language signals Ottawa is prepared to use those tools. That's not investor hostile. That's rule of law discipline. Real investors prefer predictability over arbitrary corporate latitude. You don't want a jurisdiction where contracts are vibes. You want a place where the terms are enforced evenly, even when it's uncomfortable. And the posture matters beyond Stellantis. This sends a message to every firm with subsidies or tax credits. Volkswagen, Honda, LG, you name it. Public money comes with strings. Meet the terms you signed. Otherwise, don't take the check. That's healthy industrial policy in a world where protectionism is fashionable and boardrooms test boundaries. Now, Stellantis isn't risk-free in the U.S. either. Moving to avoid tariffs didn't erase costs. It traded one set for another. U.S. wages in Illinois, higher energy costs, reshape supply chains under Buy American constraints. Those are expensive. Companies that sprint behind tariff walls often discover the wall block's efficiency too. The boardroom calculus isn't as clean as the press release suggests. Meanwhile, Ontario is trying to buffer the shock, pushing a third shift in Windsor, transferring Brampton workers, keeping skilled labor attached to the sector. Is that a full solution? No. But it preserves capacity while Ottawa tightens the screws. Unifor's role is pressure and timelines. The union is right to demand transparent plans. If Stellantis has an alternate model for Brampton, show it. When companies say we have plans without details, they're asking governments and workers to suspend disbelief. That's not how you treat a community that just took a body blow. There's also the broader chessboard. Canada's looking at CUSMA review windows and steel and aluminum talks even as this fight unfolds. Counter-tariffs are being floated. Coordination between Ford and Carney matters, because fragmented messaging weakens leverage. A united front, backed by enforceable contracts, is where Canada actually punches above its weight. Here's the part everyone's missing. This isn't only about one plant, it's about sector strategy. If Ottawa enforces the terms now, we stop future, take the money, move the work schemes before they start. If we blink, every subsidy becomes a suggestion, and every job becomes collateral in someone else's trade war. The stakes, 3,000 jobs, supply chains, and Canada fighting back. Let's get real about what's on the line. 3,000 direct paychecks don't just vanish. They take with them apprenticeship pipelines, tool and die expertise, and the demand that keeps hundreds of supplier contracts viable. The parts ecosystem around Brampton invested expecting Compass output. That's inventory, tooling, and financing structured around a production calendar that just got yanked. When assembly stops, logistics firms idle, machine shops cut shifts, restaurants across steels lose the lunch rush, and municipalities lose assessment revenue. This isn't abstract. It's rent, mortgages, kids' sports, and car loans. Here's the insight people miss. Protecting an industrial base isn't nostalgia. It's national security. Autos anchor R&D, robotics integration, advanced materials, and a skilled trades ladder you can't rebuild overnight. Lose the anchor, and you don't only lose vehicles. You lose battery integration capacity, software validation, and export muscle that funds public services. That's why the legal fight matters more than a press conference. Enforce the contract, and you tell every multinational, Canada's not a doormat. Blink, and you convert every subsidy into a polite suggestion. Evidence of the ripple is already visible. Parts manufacturers sunk hundreds of millions to prep for Compass. Many carry debt tied to anticipated call-offs. If Stellantis drifts, those firms face write-downs and layoffs. That cascades into trucking, warehousing, and payroll services. Even community colleges that tailored training cohorts to Brampton's retooling cycle are left holding the bag. One corporate pivot ripples through an entire regional balance sheet. So what are the real scenarios? Scenario A. Stellantis assigns an alternate model to Brampton and honors the footprint. Jobs stay, suppliers reset, and the legal pressure works as intended. Scenario B. Stellantis stonewalls. Ottawa withholds or claws back funds, Ontario freezes its support, litigation begins, and the company takes a reputational hit, while Canada tests counter-tariff leverage in a live CUSMA context. Neither path is painless, but only one preserves capacity. Now the trade chessboard. The U.S. is staging reshoring theater under tariff cover. Great optics, questionable P&L. Profitability lags when you pile on wage, energy, and fragmented supply chains. Mexico and the EU are already positioning as predictable partners. Canada's advantage is consistency plus enforceable deals. Aligning with allies on anti-bullying posture, targeted countermeasures, coordinated standards, keeps pressure on without random escalation. Remember when everyone said TikTok would fade after 6 months? The herd missed the structural advantage. Same energy here. People underestimate how expensive political volatility is, and they overestimate how easy it is to swap ecosystems like Lego bricks. You can move a press release faster than you can move a skilled workforce. So let me put the rhetorical challenge on the table. Do we accept the tariffs made us do it as a hall pass, or do we enforce the contracts our taxes funded? If we want a country that still makes things, we need a spine made of law, not vibes. Here's your payoff. Understanding that legal architecture, milestones, clawbacks, default remedies, isn't bureaucracy. It's how you protect jobs more effectively than any podium rant. Use it, and Brampton still has a future to fight for. Don't, and we'll be here again in 6 months with a different logo. Okay, but seriously, what should we push for right now? Demand a dated model assignment for Brampton, automatic clawbacks if targets slip, and a public posting of key milestones so workers and suppliers can plan in real time. Conclusion. If Canada lets this slide, we greenlight corporate hostage-taking. If we enforce, we set the continental standard for rules that actually protect work. Should Ottawa pull the $5 billion if Stellantis won't restore Brampton production or assign a new model with real dates? Drop your take below. Comment your best fix. Counter tariffs, stricter clawbacks, or fast-tracking a replacement program at Brampton with milestones we can verify. Subscribe if you want straight talk on Canada-US trade fights and the receipts behind the spin.